Hi everyone, it's good to see you again. So today I'm going to talk about legitimate ways you can turn your visitor visa into a work permit that would eventually lead to you getting a permanent resident status in Canada and eventually becoming a citizen if you so wish. I have to issue a caveat before I go into this. Number one, I'm not an immigration consultant, neither am I an immigration lawyer. I'm just an ordinary person that happened to be living in Canada, and I have been able to apply for my visa on myself without using a consultant or a lawyer before, and I've also been able to help some of my friends and families to be able to get their visa status approved the first time. So I just happen to know some of these things. I thought I need to state that out clearly before I start this video. I'm making this video based on my opinion, like just my opinion and my personal experience. Canada has provided opportunity for people that are admissible to come into the country as a visitor. Now, the visitor visa has been created for either tourists to come in to visit the country to see how beautiful it is with the intention of living after their visit. So for you to be able to secure your visitor visa, you have to be able to prove that you're just coming in for a visit and you have intention of living. So you have to be able to let the consular or whoever is in charge know that you're coming in for a specific period and you're going to leave when you are done. So another way you can come into Canada to visit is if you have a family or someone you are related to. So you can come in for a family visit. Even at that, you need to be able to categorically and clearly state how you're related. You have to provide proof that you are related, you have a relationship, and you're going to come in just to visit for a specific period of time and as well leave at the end of your visit. So that is totally and absolutely the basis for issuing a visiting visa to anyone that wants to come into Canada. Any instance, if the examiner find out or feels you will not leave the country while reviewing the application, it will be denied, because you are not supposed to come in and not go back. So the idea behind having a visitor visa is for you to come in temporarily for a specific period and leave at the end of that period. So clearly, without any shadow of doubt, that has to be stated in your visa application. There are, however, legitimate ways you can turn your visitor visa into a work permit and eventually get your permanent resident status or citizenship if you so wish. Canada will never let you come in as a visitor if they feel that you are going to prove as a threat to their economy, to their society. At the end of the day, they would admit you to come in as a visitor, knowing fully well that you can choose to stay at the end of the day. So it will be at your own advantage to know the other ways that you can, if you qualify, you can use those routes to stay back even when you're done with your visits. I mean, there are several other ways, and that is what this video is going to highlight. I've been able to come out with 5 legitimate ways you can turn your visitor visa permit into a work permit that would eventually get you your permanent resident status or even become a citizen at the end of the day. Is that not exciting? Watch to the end and I'll give you the 5 ways you can turn your visitor visa permit to a work permit that would eventually get you to have your permanent resident status or citizenship. Watch today. Back. The number 1 way you can get your visitor visa permit turned into a work visa, a study permit. Yes, I know a lot of people don't want to hear this because they know that if you go through the route of going to school, you would have to pay for school fees and all of that, incur more expenses. Well, if that is not if that is not for you, you need to watch to the end, because I have 4 other ways. This is especially for people that are younger and you have the zeal to go to school. Okay, so you come into Canada and you have the opportunity to visit any of the province. So when you come in as a visitor, you are going to be given 6 months. You can choose to use less than 6 months, but you need to use 6 months before you leave. Even though they've given you 5 years or 10 years on your visa, you have to use 6 months and leave. Within the 6 months, you can decide to visit schools, be on ground, talk to the admission officers, do your research, and actually know and decide which school you want to go to. If you have a budget for it, that's actually the best way. You go to school either as an undergraduate or a graduate school or a college. You go to school for just 2 years. At the end of that, you can apply for your open postgraduate work permits. And if you meet the requirements, you can also eventually apply for your permanent residency through the express entry or the Canadian experience work class. There is another way. You can decide to get an LMIA. LMIA is Labor Market Impact Assessment, and that is one assessment employers need to conduct before they can hire a temporary foreign worker. So if you're able to get an employer that is willing to employ you based off you have certain skills he is unable to fill within the Canadian market, and the employer is convinced you have the skills that is going to help him coming forward, then the employer has to conduct this assessment to ensure there would be no negative impact on the Canadian labor market if he hires you or her. So that's how the LMIA works. So there are different ways by which an employer can apply for LMIA. So there is one for high wage worker, there is one for low wage worker, there is one for seasonal agric worker program, and there is another one for agricultural stream. So those are the 4 categories for which an employer can apply for LMIA. And usually LMIA application takes between 3 to 6 months to process. So you are really under pressure actually to 1, find an employer that is willing to take you on, 2, apply for that LMIA, because you cannot be given a work permit until it's been approved for that employer to employ you. So I mean, you're on ground and you're able to convince someone to hire you, and they see that you have the skill. You know, it's possible. It's It's a long con, but it's possible. I've seen some people do it and it works. So you have, maybe it works better if you've been able to talk to an employer before you come in, or you get in and you quickly find someone that is willing to hire you, because it takes between 3 to 6 months to process this. Remember, you have only 6 months to stay in the country. So yeah, that's another opportunity. However, if the skills you have to offer fall under positions that are in high demand, or it's a very high paying job, your LMIA wait period can be as short as 10 days. So if you have a skill that is in high demand and your employer is going to be paying you a lot of money to do it, 10 days you have your LMIA. So I would advise this for very highly skilled people. But if you are skilled but it's not so much in high demand, you can still try, but have it at the back of your mind that you would have to wait 3 to 6 months to get approved. You can also come to Canada and seek asylum if you have a just cause. If you have a just cause, maybe your life is being threatened from where you're coming from, or you're being persecuted, you have a valid reason to seek asylum, you can apply, but you would need a lawyer. At this point, you don't need someone like me. You would actually need a real lawyer that will prove your case in the court of law, that will stand in for you, that would help you navigate the system and tell you how to go about it. So if you have a job budget for a lawyer, or you can get a lawyer that works for like a non-profit organization, that's great. That's possible. Hire a lawyer, you have a just cause, and you can actually go straight to having a permanent residence status for asylum seekers. That works all the time as well, but you need to have a valid reason and a just cause. If your spouse has a study permit or a postgraduate work permit, you can also apply for an open-end work permit. Let me take that again. If your spouse is a student, or your spouse has a postgraduate work permit, or your spouse has a valid LMIA, you can apply for an open-end work permit. Now, if your spouse is a student, you have the opportunity to apply for an open-end work permit. Open-end means that you can work for any employer in any province. You're not limited, unlike the LMIA. You can work for any employer in any job, skilled or not, unlike LMIA. So for the student part, you have to show that you're married to a student, and that student is in school, and the student is a full-time student and is not working or doing anything illegal, is in good standing with school, meaning he or she is paying their fees and tuition. In that scenario, you can apply for an open-end work permit. Usually this is given so you can stay with your spouse, and also as well as support the family while your spouse is working. So for the spouse that has a postgraduate work permit, that spouse has to be working in job NOC category O, A, or B. O states that person is a professional. A shows the person is a manager, and B, show the person is a skilled employer, like they are skilled and all of that. So if your spouse has a postgraduate work permit and is working in the NOC job category OA or B, you can apply for an open-end work permit. If your spouse job category is not within O, A, or B, you will be denied. So you have to prove that your spouse is working in NOC O, A, or B by providing the letter of employment, stating the salary your spouse is getting, the title, the start date, and it has to be full-time undeterminate, not a contract. So if you can prove that, you get an open-end work permit. If your spouse has also been approved by the LMIA and is attached to a company, you can as well apply for an open-end work permit. So that's another way you can turn your visitor status permit to a work permit. So the fifth, which to me is the least, is you get into Canada and you fell in love with someone that is Canadian and you decide to get married. It's very possible, but in this kind of scenario, I would advise that you really you're falling in love and you are in it for the long run. If some people do this just to get the visa, at the end of the day, it always usually don't end well because it's not genuine. So you have a lot of odds up against you when you go through this if it is not genuine. If it's not genuine, it's harder to keep up the appearance, it's harder to keep up with the lies and all of that. And if the person you're going to do this with can take advantage of you 1001 times over and over again. So this, I don't advise it except you're genuinely in love and you are set to get married to that person. However, there are a lot of other ways you can actually get your visitor permit converted into a work permit without having to lie about being in love and getting married to someone. So it's possible. I thought I should mention it just in case you come in here and you fall in love with someone, you can decide to stay back by getting married. So that's it, guys. You go to school, 2, you get a job, and your employer is going to file a labor market impact assessment for you to prove that they are unable to fill that spots within Canada and you are highly skilled and you bring what they need to the table. This was created to bridge the labor market gap for employers that are finding it hard to fill certain job positions. If your job is in high demand, in 10 days you will get approved. But if your job is not in high demand, be prepared to wait 3 to 6 months for your visas to be processed. Now, between the 3 to 6 months, it's either you get a yes, which is the positive result, or a no, which is the negative impact. So even when you get a positive, you will be tied to that employer. You will not be able to work for any other employer because you are being retained based off the fact that that company, that employer need your skill. You might not be able to work for any other person. Even if you do work for any other person, it might become harder for you to convert that into a permanent resident status. So LMIA is temporary. Usually they give you like 2 years to work for that employer. After the 2 years, you have to renew it. So, and I know that the laws are like kind of flexible, unlike before. Before, it's kind of really tricky and hard to convert an LMIA to a permanent resident status. Within the 2 years, if you're able to get the experience, a 1-year Canadian experience in a professional job position that falls between the NOC category of A, O, or B, you can easily convert that into permanent resident status. So, but if you don't find a job in that category, it becomes really hard. Yeah, it's possible still, but it's kind of hard. So you can do all of that. Yeah, the last one that I did not mention is the Home Workers Support Program. So the Home Workers Support Program has been designed for Canadians to employ foreigners that have experience in providing caregivers job. So to apply for that, if you're already here, you need to have a job offer, or you have a Canadian work experience in an eligible caregiver occupation. Then you need to meet the minimum requirements education. Like there are lots that they have. You need to have a certificate that shows that you are a professional caregiver. It's not just something for non-entity or like some countries. You need to have education, and you need to meet up to the language proficiency requirements, meaning you have to take your test for English language. They are going to test for your reading, your writing, speaking, and listening. So, and your results must not be less than 2 years old at the time of application. So home care provider pilot is currently ongoing, and it's very easy to get, because a lot of people are actually looking for nannies in their houses or daycare and all of that. It's in high demand. So if that's another easy way to convert your visiting visa to a work visa and eventually get your permanent resident status and become a Canadian citizen if you want. I hope you've been able to learn at least 1 or 2 things from my video. Let me know in the comment section what you think. I am going to come up in another video and talk about how to get your work visa approved the first time. This is a strategy I've used myself. This is a strategy I've advised my friends and families to use over and over again, and it works all the time. So watch this space for it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Bye.